Here we have it. We've arrived at the Royal Australian Mint in Canberra.
Established 1965. Beam balance was used at the Melbourne Mint from 1900 until 1960 to weigh bullion and coins made of precious metals.
This column here is made of all dollar coins.
$100,000 of them, and we did them in collaboration with the RSL. And I remember being in year one at the time and spending these red poppy coins at the school canteen. I could buy 4 Zupa Dupas with 1 red poppy. But if I had the knowledge that I do now, I would not have spent those coins, because 1 red poppy that's had all the paint rubbed off and is in a pretty rough condition might go for about $70 or $80 on the secondary markets. But one in pristine condition that has all the whole poppy intact and there's no scratching or anything like that might go for $300 or $400. So I really shouldn't have spent those red poppies at the school canteen. Now, if you'd like to move down here a little bit further.
That's the one we need.
Well, not too far. I'm going to talk to everybody about this coin here. Many of you may be in Canberra for Floriade, and while at Floriade you might see some bees here and there. I was just told by the previous group, however, that there weren't many bees at Floriade despite all the flowers. And that is why we made this coin. We made it several years ago to raise awareness about bee species in Australia and the wider world. You see, bee populations are coming down quite a lot, which is very unfortunate, because without bees you can't pollinate. Without the pollination process you can't grow anything. If you can't grow anything, then you'll starve. So we made this coin to raise awareness about bee populations in the world, and we also did it with the knowledge of what happened with the red poppy coins. That paint was rubbing off, so we incorporated that process into these coins here. So when that orange colour rubs off, you'll see an empty hive underneath. In our display, we're going to talk about the first coin ever minted in Australia. So the Holy Dollar, as I mentioned before, is the first coin that was ever minted in Australia. Before the Holy Dollar, in New South Wales in the colony, there was a shortage of coins. Whenever a governor would import coins from elsewhere in the world to be circulated, they would very quickly be spent on imports. You could take those coins to the port in Sydney and spend them on pay merchants for goods, and then those coins go elsewhere in the world. And we weren't bringing enough coins back into Australia to compensate for for all those coins leaving the colony. And so people began to use other items as a medium of exchange, and rum became quite frequently used. And the army liked rum. The army liked rum because they monopolised the operations. But a lot of farmers and businessmen and merchants didn't want to use rum, they wanted to use a real form of currency. So they lobbied the governor, William Bligh, to crack down on this rum trade. Eventually he did. He banned the use of rum, but then the army overthrew him over this. He then went back to England, and in his place came Lachlan Macquarie. And what Lachlan Macquarie did was genius. He imported 40,000 old Spanish coins and then punched out the middle part of the coin. Not only had he doubled the amount of coins he had, but he had made those coins worthless to merchants, so they would circulate only within Australia. The outer part of the coin was worth about 3 shillings, and then the inside bit part was worth about 5 pennies. Now, a very interesting fact about the Holy Dollar is that the man who Lachlan Macquarie commissioned to produce the coin was a convict who had been transported from England for the crime of coin forgery. He was the man, William Henschel was his name, who minted Australia's first coins. So on the 14th of February 1966, we introduced the new currency. But we also, should have done this before, we have to decide what this coin is going to look like. So we hold a design competition and we invite 6 contestants. These are the entries here. And the criteria were the coins had to be acceptable to the broad Australian population, and they also had to be distinctively Australian, so that if somebody from abroad looked at an Australian coin, they'd have to immediately know that it was Australian without having to turn it over and read the name of the country. So these 2 up here were the winning entries, and they were designed by this young man down here, Stuart Devlin. He was only in his early 30s when he designed those coins, and he won principally because, as you can see, they're pretty distinctively Australian. My favourite is this one here with the swan on it. I find that a very elegant coin, but unfortunately it isn't distinctively Australian enough. Now these coins here are the ones that Stuart Devlin would go on to design for the changeover. But you'll notice that there are a few differences between these coins and the coins that we use today. So if you'd like to move further down the wall, you can take a look at some of Australia's original coins. Principally that 50 cent there. So you'll notice when you look at that 50 cent, the top left, and then the 20 cent on the top right, they're very similar in size, and people would get these coins mixed up. That's the first problem that appeared to us. But then the second problem with that 50 cent coin was that in 1967, a year after it came out, the price of silver skyrocketed. So that 50 cent coin is now worth 80 cents in silver. So people weren't spending the coin, they were hoarding it, and then some people were actually melting the 50 cent down and selling off the silver. We couldn't tolerate that anymore. So in 1969 we introduced the present 50 cent coin, which has 12 sides to distinguish it from the 20 cent coin, and it's made from copper and nickel, which is the same material as all our other silver coins. Now the final change to our coins is when we stopped making those 1 and 2 cent coins. Now they are still legal tender, but it's pretty hard to find a shop that's going to accept them. And we stopped making them because by the early 90s you couldn't buy anything with them anymore. There's another tour guide who works here who was about 10 when the changeover took place. And he remembers being able to take a 1 cent coin to the lolly shop and being able to buy 4 lollies. And when I was that age, I could go to the lolly shop and buy 1 lolly for 20 cents. So these coins have lost a lot of their purchasing power over the years. So by the early 90s, you couldn't get anything with them, and they also cost more to make than what they were worth. So we stopped making them. And then when the Sydney Olympics comes around, we melt a lot of those coins down that we have lying around, and we turn them into the bronze medals for the Sydney Olympics. So if you ever touched a 1 or 2 cent coin back in the day, you have indirectly touched a bronze medal from the Sydney Olympics. There are 2 kinds of collectible coins that we make here. The first kind are uncirculated coins. An uncirculated coin is the same level of quality as a brand new circulating coin. Now the difference between an uncirculated is that it's never touched. As soon as it's been made, it's put into packaging and then sent off to our wholesalers, to our distributors, or to the shop, or to the online shop. And these uncirculated coins are made in that machine up the back there with the blue lid. Now these are sort of your entry-level collectible items, and most of the coins down in the shop are going to be uncirculated coins. But the real collectible coins are called proof coins. They are made, so these machines just in the middle here, they are where most of the proof coins are made. The technician will sit on that chair and place the blank into the press it several times, take it out, and then inspect it for any scratches or any defects. Now the main reason you might buy a proof coin over an uncirculated coin is that a proof coin has a much lower mintage, and that means that far fewer of that proof coin will ever be made. So when we were walking up, I mentioned that this room here has made all of our circulating coins since the early 80s, but the mint was opened in the 60s. Now, in the meantime, Australia's coins were minted in a smaller building off to the side of this big one. You might have seen it as you were driving here. This building here was originally designed to make the blanks. The blank is just a straight bit of metal which is eventually going to be pressed. But by the 1980s, Deakin had become a lot more populated than it was in the 60s, and so had Woden and the surrounding suburbs. And we could no longer keep releasing those all kinds of pollutions and things like that into the atmosphere. And there was also too much noise and too much traffic from all the trucks which are coming in and out of here. So the blanks are now made at other factories all around Australia. And when we